Welcome to People First Builders, celebrating leaders in construction who build success through their people. My name is Fletcher Wimbush, your host. I'm the CEO of Discover.ai, a performance hiring software helping small and mid-sized AEC companies solve their hardest problem, people. We help people first leaders install and execute repeatable talent acquisition systems that drive business results by hiring top performers, lowering turnover, and building world-class company cultures. Stick around to the end and you can learn more about how to become a guest on our podcast and share your story with the world. Welcome to the People First Builders podcast. My name is Fletcher Wimbush. I'm your host. Today I have Roggen Frick with me. He's the founder and co-owner of Bear Ironworks. Roggen has a really unique background here. He grew up in a family in the construction industry and found that passion and went to school and went down a traditional construction management path, ultimately to found and co-found a unique product solution that services the construction industry with his father. It's a great story. We had his father on the podcast a few months ago, and he had his take, and today we get to hear yours. Where a start though, Roggen, is you don't hear a lot of young people get excited about the construction industry. I don't know if you want to share how old you are, but if you would, that'd be great. If not,
Yeah.
no worries. But why did you? Yeah, what got you interested? Right?
Yeah, I'm 26 years old. But I guess had me interested in the construction industry is just growing up in it. My dad had a construction business ever since I was born. Been on and off doing his own business and working for major contractors in the US. And I've just been around it. I've been in heavy equipment growing up. I learned how to operate heavy equipment at a young age. I learned how to weld when I was in my teenage years. And I just kind of developed some skills, some good hands-on skills and like building things. And I like making things with my hands. And I was originally actually going to go into a career path of like film production and making movies. It was something that I wanted to do. But I sat down and looked at the career path and felt that construction was a more viable career, and I already had a good skill set for it, and I did like being outside and being able to work with my hands.
Yeah. So, I think not everybody has that experience, right? And obviously, we need more people in the construction industry, and we need to see more young people get excited about it. I mean, have you seen any of your peers? Maybe they didn't have that same opportunity being in the family business, I guess, or being exposed to it that way. Have you seen others get excited about it, or what kind of conversations did you have with your friends while you were going to college, and just perspectives maybe that you've seen or maybe been able to influence others?
Yeah, I did have a handful of friends that ended up finding their way into the construction industry. Some of them started out with they were going to go into engineering, be maybe a mechanical engineer,
Mm.
and then they kind of made their path towards construction. I don't know if it was exactly the same reasons as mine, if it was just like being outdoors and building things, or if it was just the influence of being around me and being around other people in the industry. Because a lot of my friends that I was associated with were also in construction management degree. Um, but I have seen a lot of younger people, at least in my degree and everything, be excited about it because it's something new. And I've seen people that are in the program and they don't have any construction experience at all. And they were still excited to learn it and understand it. And the hardest thing I think that we have in the industry is we have a little bit of this like culture of like, if you weren't grown up in it or you don't have a lot of experience, it can be kind of um difficult to step onto a job site, because there's a lot of pride that a lot of people have about building things and the knowledge that they have in the trades. And I think it's could be a little intimidating for younger people to step onto a job site and have no experience at all and have to then jump into working side by side with these people who may have been doing it 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a big jump into the industry compared to others.
Yeah, yeah. You could see that being pretty intimidating if you don't have any of that foundational experience or skills. So you go to school for construction management.
Mhm.
what happens after that, and, help us understand the journey that gets you to, founding this company or creating this company, Bear Iron.
Yeah, so I had those skills, like I said before. I could weld, and some a passion of mine is racing motorcycles, and I wanted to have a shop while I was in college to put my motorcycle in so I could work on it. And so my dad had this idea about making these Grizzly Rock screens that I could weld them up, take them to a Ritchie Brothers auction and sell them and have enough money to pay for my shop.
Yeah.
So I started that as a side business while I was in college and just started making them on the side. Now I built a website and all of a sudden I'm getting a lot of calls, getting a lot of interest.
Wow.
People need rock screens. I found out there's actually a demand for them, and people are calling me directly, and I don't actually have to just sell them to an auction. Well, pretty soon I'm in a bigger shop. I've hired on a couple of employees, and it's becoming too chaotic with going to school and running a business at the same time. And so I shut it down, finished school, didn't have too big of an intention of starting it back up.
Yeah.
I was just going to go down the traditional construction manager path and go work for a general contractor. I managed some school remodels, managed some additions, and my dad he was working for Kiewit at the time, doing a large liquid natural gas project, and he was working a lot of hours, and he was kind of looking to make a change. So he was like, I think that if you and I go in together, we could take the Grizzly Rock Stream business and turn it into a bigger business where we sell more products. And we've brought on bedding boxes and concrete washout tubs and things like that. And so we joined together, stopped working in construction fully, started serving the construction industry. And then we also do just a little bit of construction consulting on the side. But our main business is building our products.
Nice. Well, it's probably good that you were able to get out there and get some real hands-on experience in construction management, right? And a
Yeah.
better understanding of what your customers are going through and what they need. And I mean, you had some obviously probably in your younger days, but having had reached that kind of pinnacle, that's probably a pretty good background then for you to take the plunge.
Ye Yeah, it was I learned a lot being on bigger job sites with multiple trades and managing teams of people, running schedules, managing budgets, doing submittals, doing all the typical things that you do on a bigger commercial job, and just kinda learning, how the trades interact with each other and what it's like on a construction site. I learned a lot about, employee culture, how people, see their jobs and, like, how they feel about their employment and their employers, because you're working with subcontractors who every company has a different culture. And I learned a lot about business in general just working for them, which I applied a lot of principles that I learned there to my own business.
So working with a lot of different subs, I would imagine some were great and some weren't. If you had to, to
So
describe the difference between one that was amazing and one that wasn't, what were some of the big takeaways or observations, that you made there?
The ones that were amazing, they really understood the trade that they were doing, and they took the time to make a work plan beforehand and understand what their scope of work was. Call us as the general contractor to make sure that submittals are submitted, that they're approved, if any changes need to happen, and coming up with a plan of execution for when they need to be on site, what they need to do, and how many people that they need to have to be able to achieve the task at hand.
Yeah.
The subs that were really difficult to work with were the ones that weren't prepared, didn't plan ahead. They showed up on the day that you told them, if you could get them on the day that you told them.
Yeah.
You can't get a hold of them for a scheduling meeting, and so you just punch them in the schedule and hope that you can
They
get
hope
them
for
there.
the best.
Right, and they get there and, maybe their crew has a foreman, or maybe it's just 3 or 4 guys that are just kinda like, "I don't know, point us in the right direction, we'll figure it out," and then even though I'm the general contractor and it's all subbed out to them, I end up having to hold their hand through their scope of work and kinda manage their crew for them. And so organization, I think, is really like the biggest thing, and planning of what makes things go successfully for a a scope of work or not.
So the best ones were really proactive in that, and the worst ones were very reactive in their planning and that side.
Yes.
And what about their people? Any observations then how that affected their people, or the difference between the ones that were more proactive and the more reactive, subs that you worked with?
Yeah, so the proactive subs, people generally were, they were good to work with. They were professionals. They seemed to enjoy their jobs more than the people who were reactive, because the people that were reactive, they were dealing with nothing but problems all the time, and they had to have me on the phone on their ass constantly,
Yeah.
calling them, calling them, calling them. Hey, I need you to get this done. I need you to get this submittal. I need you to get out to the job site. I need you guys to do this. You guys aren't here. Your quality's fallen. You guys missed a spot. You guys didn't do X, Y, and Z. And it's just, I don't think it's very enjoyable. Nobody wants to have 100 phone calls in a day from a general contractor going, hey, you're not doing things right. Where the guys that were proactive, we have a conversation beforehand about planning, get everything set in stone. They show up to the job site, make sure that they have the things that they need from us. It goes smooth. They got a process figured out. I'm sure they do that
Yeah.
job to job to job. Everything's a lot smoother in their lives. They don't have to listen to the GC hammering them all the time.
Yeah. Because the trades themselves ultimately get into the middle of this kind of, conflict and or, they do work and like any trade, right? I don't know, you dug that trench or wired that, room or that building and you're being called back to fix or change or redo your work all the time, right? It's sort of you might take that personally and feels like, oh man, even though it might not totally be their fault, right? Their leadership
Right.
had failed them in a way
Yes.
that set them up for failure in whether or not they were good at their job or not, right?
Yes.
So, it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense, uh, structure, planning, thoughtfulness, really trickles down to your people and probably makes their lives more enjoyable and makes them, more successful at, executing their work, right?
Yes, and the subcontractors that understood the importance of, like, a scheduling meeting where everybody comes together, all the subs on site come together all at once to go through the schedule and try to make sure that, this is getting done in time and that we're building a schedule that's realistic. The subs that showed up there and actually understood the importance of that were they had a lot more success on the projects than the people that felt like it was useless.
Yeah.
Because there are still a lot of people in the industry that don't quite understand the importance of a schedule and why that matters on a construction project. And if you're not like following your schedule consistently and making sure that you're hitting your deadlines, things are going to start slipping and things are going to start falling apart. The quality is going to fall apart. The safety is going to fall apart. Everything's just going to start becoming this chaotic mess if you're not actively managing that.
Yeah, and it just gets worse and worse, right? You sort of get behind the 8 ball and it's a slippery slope, right?
Yes.
there's disorganized one, you start having a bunch of problems. Well, then the next one's gonna be more disorganized and more chaotic, and then eventually you might implode, and that's not a pleasant situation for anybody involved in. You're going on to bare iron, I one of the things that kinda just struck me, the preparation piece sort of reminded me of Gallup. So Gallup wrote a book called First Break All the Rules. They have these kind of 12 principles in terms of leadership and good communication, good systems, processes that allow people to be successful. Sort of what I think you've been alluding to and demonstrating from your experience as being really important. But I think one of the other things is having the right tools to do the job. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what
Agreed.
you guys do, right? So you identified there are certain tools that, we need on a construction site that didn't exist or were not readily available and you created it, right?
Yeah, all the products that we offer aren't some new invention. They've been around. People have made them and probably easily homemade type
Yeah.
products. Like a rock screen is a really good example. There's all kinds of people that have made them from 2x4s and chain link fence to our actual manufactured product that we sell everywhere. Um, but that was a big thing that we identified in the industry. And I give all that credit to my dad of just because he has so many years of construction experience to be able to understand what these products are needed out there in the field.
Yeah.
Because when he was running major projects, he needs a rock screen. Well, he can't find one anywhere, and maybe he can find a used one at an auction. It's kind of falling apart or something like that. Bedding boxes, the rental companies don't have the bedding boxes, and the stuff's just not available. So we started making these products and trying to, at first, just making sure that we can produce them fast enough, get them out the door fast enough to make sure that people are on schedule, because we understand how important a schedule is. We understand how important that is for your project. But then now that we've scaled, now we can have things in stock. We've identified the popular choices,
Yeah.
standardize a product line. Now we have things in inventory that if you need a product, we can just put it on a truck and ship it out to your site and get it there quick.
Yeah. Might be there tomorrow or in 2 days or,
Right.
or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
However,
Yeah.
however far away you are, but
Yeah, depending on, the middle how far in the middle of nowhere you might be or not, right?
yeah.
Well, drones will be delivering them soon, but, those are probably a little heavy, I would imagine, but,
Yeah. A couple dozen pounds.
well, they can drop bombs, they could probably get that over
Right.
to the middle of Wyoming or something, all right, no, no, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So when did you reboot the business and, how has that journey gone? And, where did you guys start? Back in a garage or in a small shop and how have you grown and scaled since?
Yeah, so the second time around that we did the business, we started in my grandparents' little garage that they had. We brought our first welder out there and showed him the products that we had developed already and showed him how to make them, and he started making them. So then we got another shop. That was the kind of period where it was like we're taking in the orders and making sure that we can get them out the door. We don't really have anything in inventory.
Yeah.
Everything was kind of custom at that point. We got into a new shop, really fleshed out our operations team, built out more processes that we can do in our shop, and then developed a system because see manufacturing. It's like construction. You're building things, but it's repeatable.
Yeah.
Construction, it's a unique thing that you're building each time. Manufacturing, it's again and again and again, but the principles of managing it are still the same. You need to know what you're building. You need to understand your material costs and your labor hours. You need to have a schedule to be able to make sure that you're doing things smoothly and getting it out. And at the same time, you also have to prioritize safety. That's still number one priority in our shop. And housekeeping is number one. We have a really clean shop that way nobody gets hurt, and then we have a nice, safe workplace that people actually want to show up to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge piece of it. So how many people do you have now and how have you scaled the team? Finding welders is not an easy thing to do in this day and age.
Yeah, we've got our company size is 10 employees, including the owners. And, I don't know if it's kind of like luck in our area. We're out of Grand Junction, Colorado, and it's a boom bust oil field location. And so there are a lot of decent welders in the area. And I don't know if we managed to just find a handful of them because it was kind of during a little bit of a bust period for the oil field in there, and it's not as booming as much on the western slope of Colorado. But we did manage to get a handful of welders that are good, and we retain them by building that good company culture, building that team dynamic, and making sure that they're working there with each other and for each other, and not just showing up to get a paycheck. We incentivize safety, we incentivize innovation and thinking, and then we do something a little unique as we do a 4-day, 10-hour-a-day work week.
Okay.
That way they can have a 3-day weekend every weekend. But if they have to work overtime, they still get a full weekend as well.
Yeah.
And that's it. One of the things that we
Just like that, I would imagine, right? They like to be able to.
they love it. Yeah, even if we're not the highest paying shop in town, it's that type of benefit and just having some healthcare benefits and just having some of the basic things there that really keep them retained, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. And so you've been successful keeping your team together. I mean, obviously they could go to the oil fields or, whether that be locally or somewhere else out of town, I imagine, and they'd have a much more lucrative package, I would imagine. What's kind of been the feedback from these guys? They've come from that or they're aware of it. They know it's available. They're in high demand, right? Why stay, the 4-day work week is great. You mentioned a couple other things. How have some of these other benefits, in your opinion, or feedback that they've given you, how are some of those other components played into their decision making on, staying with you versus chasing the money?
Yeah, I think that the one thing that they really like is they like the consistency of the schedule. It's predictable, right? And it's like I said, if any overtime needs to happen, it's usually only on a Friday, and it's it's not a full day unless it absolutely has to be. So predictability is something that they like. They like that they get a consistent paycheck. They like that they like the people that they work with. We built a team of people that are like each other, that can, conversate with each other, socialize, and be friendly with each other. And then they also like that we are involved with them, that we're asking them questions all the time, making sure that they have the things that they need to be successful, making sure that we're recognizing when they put in extra effort and are doing things good. And just being involved in that sense creates a good, positive work environment, where people don't necessarily want to go to the guy next door because, yeah, maybe he pays $5 an hour more, but I've heard the culture there isn't good, or
Yeah.
I have to go work outside in poor conditions, or the safety isn't as good, or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
and it's just trying to check those boxes to make an enjoyable workplace.
Yeah, it sounds like you're checking a lot of those boxes that, Gallup talks about here, and you found a good way to do that. I mean, encourage folks to, or to demonstrate that you care, and that's a big piece of it. And yeah, having friends at work, having great systems, having, um, you know, predictable, expectations, and
Yes.
people, acknowledging your work, and being able to contribute, in innovative ways are all, pieces of that puzzle that keep people highly engaged in
Yeah.
whatever they do in life, I think, right? We all want those, whether it's in our personal or our professional life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that the predictability is probably one of the biggest things, I think, because back to the poor subcontractor who shows up on site not with no plan and everything's just chaotic. Well, that's just stress that the employees have to bear. They have to bear that stress on their shoulders, and
Yeah.
I think about that all the time, and they're gonna take that stress home with them, and they're not gonna like where they're working. So if you can plan ahead and prevent chaos,
Yeah.
then it's gonna be a lot less of a stressful work environment.
Yeah. Very few people like, living or working in a chaotic environment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of us like some type of plan to our
Or
workday.
some sort of plan, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we all do. I mean, little chaos time to time, if it's self-induced and
Yep.
on purpose, maybe, I guess, but no, no, we try to avoid it, right? Awesome. Well, look, I really appreciate you joining us today. How can people find you guys? And yeah, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, you can find us on our website, beariron.com. And then you can also reach out on LinkedIn if you want to get in touch with me personally.
Great. We'll have all of that in the show notes. And when we share clips and on all the different platforms here, people can click and check through there and get in contact with you guys. And I'm sure you can find them a custom solution, or you have a, nice already pre-engineered rock screens and other tools that can help optimize their work sites and keep moving fast.
Yes, we can. Our goal now is to help excavation contractors however we can, whether that's making them a custom product or getting them something that they need fast. So,
Nice. Awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to our People First Builders podcast. If you're a successful construction CEO and would like to tell your story on this program, please visit our podcast homepage, fletcherwimbush.com/peoplefirstbuilders, or check it out in the notes below. If you got something out of this interview and would like to share the episode on socials, we always appreciate that. Just take a quick screenshot with your phone, text it to a friend, or post it to the socials. If you know someone who might be a great guest, tag them on social and let them know. And don't forget, #PeopleFirstBuilders. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We're regularly putting out new content. To make sure that you don't miss out on any episodes, go ahead and hit subscribe on your favorite podcast channel. Your thumbs up and ratings and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, fletcherwimbush.com, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.